I don't think you can.
I think we can export this and we'll be able to edit anything else in.
Okay.
Okay, so take 2, we're live, let's go. Hi, I'm Peter, this is Johan. We are Scientific Microlytica, is that what we are?
Scientific Microlytica speaking and starting. Thanks for joining. Yeah, we failed the first time, as most things fail the first and the 39th time if you look at Airbnb, I think. And our careers also have failed, mostly still failing.
Lives as well.
Sort of, sort of. Yes, so there's been a few developments with regards to the amount of medication we're going to take, since this shit's going to be...
Oh, have you taken your medication?
No! We spoke about something beforehand, which I can't mention now.
Okay.
Jesus. Okay, so our first show will be without enhancements, so that you guys can have a baseline of where our intelligence is without any enhancements. I call it enhancements. We might call it cognitive reductions.
Modifications. That's unqualified.
Yeah, so we've chosen probably the best topic to talk about first, while we are quote unquote sober or unenhanced, unlimitless.
Limited.
And so the topic we're going to talk about is whether reality exists.
Have we
In
decided
short.
on that? Have we decided on that? I was actually thinking that that we should tackle free will first.
But
And
that's
it-
the
it
same
might
thing.
merge. Okay, so that's what I thought. So last time we spoke, the topics that merged or presented themselves out of were 1, free will, 2, the nature of reality, and 3, the question of AI that kind of linked the two topics. I think starting with free will and then seeing where that takes us will be an interesting ride. So
No, I agree. I think it's just, so yeah, I agree with that. That's a nice roundabout way to saying that we are going to talk about what reality is and is not, or if it exists. But yes, so I think we can start with free will. But just to summarize that for you guys, so we will tackle the subject of whether free will exists or not from our layman point of view, I guess, and that will inexplicably lead into whether AI is taking over the world and whether we should give in to the demands of AI, which means we should try and become cyborgs and
we already are cyborgs.
and throw away. Where's my cell phone? What do you mean? And whether that means whether we should forego any of our own purpose and move towards creating new replication devices, being AI cyborgs, and hence in the time of humanity, which is basically what that means.
Yeah. Good
So-
synopsis.
Yes, thank you. So so this podcast is free. Let's just
For now.
get a bit of homework out of the
We'll
way.
have one viewer.
It's probably going to be free forever. People are free to join us whenever they want. If they can,
Connect, comment, criticize.
yeah. You will probably at some point when we get a bigger studio, we will invite guests, homeless people, random people who have nothing, people who are unemployed like myself, who could just come and join us.
On a Wednesday, in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will serve as a trial for our new concoctions for
Enhancements.
mind-altering enhancements.
So we are, shall we say, psychonaut scientists? Would that be an accurate description?
Psychonaut.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
It does, eh? It's got a nice ring to it.
Psychonaut.
Yeah. So we can define that later. Should we if
That sounds like a better name for the show, like Psychonauts. Okay.
Okay, so maybe we should just define, our point of departure or perspectives, the way that we evaluate the topic. We consider ourselves scientists, correct?
Well, how many papers have you published? No, I'm joking. So, we both have scientific backgrounds in a sense. None of us are in any way accomplished scientists.
Philosophically speaking, you would call it scientists.
Yeah, definitely more. And I think.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, let's set out kind of on which sides we both stand on this topic. I definitely think that I am more inclined to believe free will, or that there's a bigger scope for free will, and you probably shift towards the deterministic side. And from that side, we're going to start debating, and we're obviously here to try and convince each other of our other realities, or our thoughts on reality. So I guess let's start with sort of a 5-minute opening, stating your case of what you think free will is, defining what you think needs defining, and then laying the groundwork for why you think free will is limited more than I think it is.
Okay. So I'll start by saying, Hitchens Reisner. Okay. So the burden of proof lies with the one who makes the claim. A bit of a variation on the Spider-Man thing, with great responsibility that's the other way around. With great power comes great responsibility. So with the great claim demands great evidence. So I think you're the one that's making the claim.
But it's a bad use of Spider-Man, because with a good plot, they still fucked up the movie.
That's okay. Tangent. Back on free will. So,
I'm just showing that free will exists because I went on a tangent.
We can use it. We can use the analogy of cinema to depict the lack of free will, though. So anyway, we'll come back to that. So, So I think you're making the claim that free will exists. So the burden of proof is on you.
Okay.
Just like, if someone were to claim something absurd, like there's a Father Christmas or a God, then it would be the burden of proof is on them to prove that. So the burden of proof is on you. So I'd say it's after you. You can give the intro, you can give your argument, and then I'll give a rebuttal.
100%. I think there's firstly a very big disconnection with time. So surely time doesn't exist for you, because I said 5 minutes, but that was 5 seconds, which is great. I mean, I like more microphone time.
I'm saying you can have your 5 minutes, and I'm gonna have my 5 minutes. That was just my introduction to your 5 minutes.
100%. So, in a sense, when let's talk about that burden of proof thing, which I agree with. The person making the most, the sort of the most unrealistic claim needs to provide the biggest amount of proof, and we see that with God and Father Christmas. Again, the question is, from which point of view, and how does it arise that either a viewpoint is, say, more irrational or less irrational? Because take 500 years ago, everyone believed in God, hence saying God not existing or proving God does not exist is probably more difficult in a sense, because the belief is more homogeneous in a way. Same with kind of the earth. We all know that the earth is round. Everyone believed it's flat. The person, there's still 4 people clinging on to gravity. And so in a sense, because this, so let's go back to religion. So, let's do the flat earth. So everyone believed earth was flat. It was obviously round, but that responsibility lied with the person to prove that it was round, although that was obviously the most realistic that we know now, the most realistic point of view. Mm-hmm. So hence, how do we know that the lack of free will is the most obvious state? If you understand what I'm saying, like,
I understand what you're saying.
So how
I still think that you're claiming the existence of something, I'm claiming the non-existence of something, so the burden of proof is on you.
All right. Okay. So I get that. So it's not. So it's about. But then that sort of how you're defining that, it means anyone who claims existence of anything has the burden of proof. So hear me this. So if I say you don't exist, do I now have the burden of proof, or do you have the burden of proof?
Touche. that is good. So, fair enough. I'll take that point.
Okay.
But now you.
Okay, no, that's fair. Okay.
We
No, I still, yeah.
We can re-rendezvous this point later and
no, I
decide
Yeah.
who the burden of proof leans on.
Yeah.
But,
No, I agree.
but,
Yeah.
but give you 5 minutes of your proof, and I'll
Sure.
give my proof /
Yeah.
disproof.
Yeah, so I mean that argument obviously is not fundamental to, but it's not fundamental to the real argument. But
I hear you.
yeah, so I think let's start with definitions,
Mm.
and I think we probably what most arguments can be settled. I think 99% of arguments can be settled at the point of definitions. Politics, right? So I think the first question of definition is how do we know? So first we have to define reality, right? And that's the first thing we kind of do, because we want to prove if something is real or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we're going to make it very easy. We're going to say, all right, how do I know this chair is real? Then we have to define real. So, because the definition, anything can only be a definition because we're going to work with objective definitions. It can only be a definition if we, as scientists, can apply this definition to the scientific method, meaning we're able to say we can come up with a hypothesis and a null hypothesis to show that this chair is either real or not. Hence then real needs a definition. And so that's the first one we're going to. And the next one is we're going to have to define what knowing means, which is the word we just throw around. How do you know gravity exists? Well, sure, okay, you can test it. So then how do you define know? When do you not know something, or when do you know something? So how do we define, if I say, like, I don't know what happened at the Big Bang, meaning I don't know, what is that definition? I don't know. And how do you test that? So I think we got to come to a point where we can test everything. So right. So let's start with the definition of something is real. And this is my definition. Something is real if it can be tested, in short, if it can be tested with the senses, with the 5, 4, 6, whatever senses that you believe there is, directly and indirectly. Indirectly meaning X-rays, infrared, high frequency bat signals that we don't all get, some do. And the senses, obviously, we can touch it, we can smell it, we can see it, and then all the indirect testing. And if you apply the scientific method to that, it has to be consistent with the senses of not just one, but more people, meaning it can be replicated. And the scientific method is then enforced after it's replicated by being able to predict. So then once we say we know, and we know what reality is, then after that I can predict that this chair will be here when I come back from work. If it is, because I've predicted as reality and everyone still comes and touches and yeah, it still has the same parameters, then it is real. So again, I understand my definition of reality is linked to our senses, which again, then there's the other argument of, but how do we know our senses is real? And then obviously we can get into that, because then it means the reality is based upon observations, which is the senses. Again, if there was no us, there's no observations, we're not having this argument. So you could say that kind of stops the argument in place. We have to work with the principles we do have. So I would like to start there. That is my definition. The fact that I can touch this thing, and if you touch it at the same position, we can work out, you create the same indentation, you have the same sensation in your fingers. If we have a ruler, we will measure the same thing. If we shoot some rays to it, it will bounce off at the same place, the same density, softness, all that parameters we use. The weight would be the same, and according to gravity, which is all linked to the constants of nature, which all of this rests upon. So from that, if you use your sense data, you will have a similar picture. You will replicate the same picture I had of this written in my senses. Hence, that is reality. And every other person that comes and uses those same parameters will have the same measurements. So in a sense, reality is consistency. Right, done.
Okay, so I think for this conversation to go forward, we have to agree on that baseline. But I think that, I mean, we can do a endless discussion just arguing the fine points of exactly what reality is. What you've given is a materialistic description of reality. And I think reality does have layers. I mean, ideas are real, but they can't necessarily be sensed by in a way that you've just described, and abstractions like mathematics, you know, what's real, the planets that are being pulled together by gravity, the physical particles there, or the equation that describes them coming towards each other. You know, is it what's more real? Is it the abstract idea or the physical, tangible thing? You know, is cash real? You know, it's tangible, but
Sure.
it's a lie. It's an illusion. It's nonsense. So
It's a concept.
It's a concept.
So that's the question. Is concepts and abstractions real? Just make it easy. Is 2 + 2 real?
I think that's a poor question. That can only get a poor answer. I think it's a real question.
Okay, let's start with is the concept of a forest real?
The concept of a forest.
Is the concept of a government real? Can you touch a government?
You can touch members of a government.
Good. You can touch a building.
Yeah.
You can touch a human being.
But the government itself is a myth.
Sure. So you can't touch a government. Can I eat a government? Can I throw an X-ray at a government and get the same diffractional thing?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So same with the forest. Can I touch a forest? I can touch a tree.
Yeah.
You could say that the forest starts there, but how do I test the forest? Because the forest is a name of a collection of things, because we use abstractions to better communicate. And you could say we communicate reality, but when we go down to testing, I don't know. It's a weird concept for people to think like, yeah, okay, a forest is an abstraction. Sure. Is a tree an abstraction? That's the debate, because that's where it's because we made a category tree, and our definitions, well, we're getting to biological things, which is, you know, it's always very difficult. Even our definition of humans and Homo sapiens, these things change as we go. We know there's an exception to this group or chordata or subfamily. There's always a difference. So then in lies the idea of consistency. And something like idea, if you bring up an idea, again, it is an abstraction. We use the same as we use God. God is an abstraction we can't measure, but we use it to communicate.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it real. And the same with mathematics. I can't find the number 2 in reality. I can't call you up and like, dude, I drove over 2 today. Like, fuck. Can we share? I swear.
It just limits our audience somewhat, but I think it's okay.
Yeah. Sorry, children. I mean, children with dads. I mean,
Children with no dads don't count.
that's true. No, but they can't donate. So it's important when talking about reality to find. It's right, man. It's concepts that are still locked in language. The question is, how much does language limit our ability to differentiate between something that's real and something that has now just become a concept? Because in a sense, language is that abstraction.
Absolutely.
You and I can't feel, touch language. We can touch sound waves. We can sense sound waves. So the question is, with my definition, is my definition in a sense right? And again, you could say it's only right, it can be right if most people apply it, if most people use it. Hence then we can build a better model for reality. Then the question is to only know if my use of the definition is a better model for reality. It has to stand up to testing consistently. So if I use my definition and we use it and we see, okay, it's completely wrong half of the time, it's shit definition.
Yes.
So therein lies the next definition. How do you know? You know if you're able to consistently test something and it's constant. Then we know I'm right. If this thing about the chairs, we use this definition, and every time everyone gets the same thing now, and 100 years later and 1,000 years later, taken that, obviously I don't own this house, I'm renting it from the government, but hopefully they get destroyed and then I can own this thing properly, and then this chair will still be in 1,000 years. Yeah, that is how this definition can work.
Okay, so I think in this conversation, your definition of reality works.
Okay.
I think in subsequent conversations, there are different versions or perspectives of reality where we might need to redefine reality. But I think if we're going to look at the biological origin of free will, I think we can deal with the concrete materialistic definition that you've given. So I accept that.
Okay.
So now the next question that you want to define is knowing.
Sure, but before we get to that, I just want to know from you, you say materialistic. Do you have in your mind any other definitions which would say non-materialistic definitions of reality?
So
like the Kardashians or MTV, I mean that's... Or love.
I mean something like the simulation theory, where you have a reality that at base reality you're dealing with ones and zeros, so you can drive over it too, because that is what it consists of. And there are schools of thought that argue that if you go down to the elementary level, that's what we're dealing with is noughts and zeros. And that a simulation of reality is indistinguishable from base reality. So the chance that we're in base reality is 1 in a billion.
So I like that. Let me. So this might help the definitional thing. So say let's say gravity, because gravity is easy. Because gravity is kind of permanent and constant, as women with boobs have shown over the years. And so if you and I, if we say, like, I'm going to base my definition of reality completely on mathematics, which is an abstract concept, but I'm going to create a rule. Here is the equation of gravity, and I'm going to apply it every time gravity appears, and it's consistent. And you test it every time, and it's constant. Then it will hold up. Every time. So then you could say the reality is this mathematical equation. And then in a sense you've got a definition where there's consistency within an abstract concept, but I still can't touch the equation. I still can't feel or experience the equation, but the equation is consistent.
Yes.
So again, if you go with that, the why it's difficult to define is, in order to define, if you go deeper into the equation of gravity, to define that, you again have to go into measurements. And measurements again comes back to my definition, which is you still have to touch, I still have to hold the thing, I still have to drop, I still have to work out mass, and hence we still need consistent language based upon sense data. So even for you, the thing is, I think we're coming to the same thing from both sides.
So just to intercede you, measurements are imperfect, and measurements can sometimes influence that which is being measured.
Sure.
So it's an imperfect thing, and I think as scientists we have to be able to say, I don't know. I'm pretty sure, but there always has to be room for doubt. You are saying that every time someone jumps off a building, they're going to go splat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you are probably going to be right most of the time. And you'll be very surprised if someone bounces back up.
Well, like Superman 2.
Yeah. If someone jumps off the building and I see a video of them bouncing back up, I'll be like, it's about time.
It's about time.
To happen.
It's about time Inception comes to this town.
Exactly. So I have to say, there's always got to be room for doubt, and you have to accept that every model of reality is just that. It's a model.
It's about time someone builds a pogo stick into his bionic leg. Oscar Pistorius, get that pogo stick. Yes, but lost my train of thought there.
We're going to get bogged down in this.
No. We will. Just the thing, it still for me comes down. Yeah, it still for me comes down to the same thing. That it is still consistent. This is where it comes down to, how do I measure whether I know or not? So I like the fact that I agree with you. There's times when I say I don't know, and there's times when I say I know. But how do I measure? By what do I measure whether I say I know or I don't know? Which is an easy definition. I can say I know because I can predict it 100%. And things that I don't know, but that's the question.
You can predict it with a acceptable amount of certainty. You can't predict anything 100%.
At the moment, there is some stuff we can 100%, meaning I know it until the time that 100% rule is broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a realistic, acceptable limitation.
Yes.
Because we can't see forward in time.
Yeah.
Say that, all right. So every time I drop something, I will say I know what's going to happen, and you can only say you know because you can tell me what happens beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, meaning human intellect is the way that its only purpose is to predict the future. Because that's what it does. That's what science does. It is just there to predict the future so that we can make more babies more efficiently. And so again, that's the definition I want you to either agree or disagree with me with. That prediction model is the way that we say we know or we don't know.
Agreed.
You agreed? Okay, cool. Go.
Accepted. No, you go.
All right. So now we can start with free will. And I'll set out my 3-minute succinct definition of free will. So
I want to check this afterwards and see how accurate we are in our predictions of time.
Well, we said we're going to do this for an hour.
5 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay.
No, it's a good point.
So
it's a good point.
Go.
So the free will is basically defined as I'm unpredictable. I'm inherently unpredictable, meaning I have choice. Choice is measured whether you can predict my behavior or not. I can predict the behavior of a rock 100% with if I have all the information that science is able to give me now about a rock. At the moment, of all the information science is capable of giving me about myself, no one can 100% predict what I'm going to do next. And that I don't know, that gap of I don't know what he's going to do, or here we got it wrong, or our predictability is only 39%. That other 61% is what I call free will. My definition does not exclude that 61% might be known in future. But at the moment, we do not have proof to say that I have control over that 61%. Control. So my free will is my ability to have choice, and my choices are limited. I cannot fly, otherwise I get on a plane, but I cannot, without assistance, I cannot fly away. And I can also not make my dog do a Nazi salute in Britain. I cannot. That's impossible. And I cannot also shed my white privilege. This is impossible. So there's choices I don't have, and there's choices I have. It's very easy for me to, in my definition, in a sense, to say there's a spectrum of choice. There's stuff I cannot do, and there's stuff I can do. I can stand up and leave the room. I can stand up and try and do a handstand. I can punch you in the face. I can engorge on that. So I have this limited amount of choices I have. And it is impossible to predict 100% what of those I'm going to do. And that is my free will. And hence there is what it means in a theoretical sense, or a metaphysical sense, is that my consciousness has, in respect, created an element of randomness through however means we don't understand. And I have control over that randomness. Also, in some way that we don't know yet, but we're ascribing to me that free will, meaning I have that. I'm in control over your ability not to predict me. Not to be able to predict my behavior. So I'm not saying free will for me is not 1 or 0. It is. It comes down to a probability, a range, or a percentage range of choice that I do have. Choice being the different options I have in life.
Okay. So I am hearing two arguments. The one is essentially the same as the God of the gaps,
Correct.
So, there is a God because there is nature. There's all these creatures walking around, and they could only exist if a God created them. Until Darwin comes along and he's like, oh, but actually they evolved, and this is the mechanism by which it does, and we can prove that, and we can predict that, and then we're like, okay, so we don't need the God model to describe that anymore. The same with the Earth being flat, and we used to think that we're in the center of the universe, and therefore we must be the center of God's creation. Then we realize, oh, we're only on this random sort of arm of a random galaxy in a random corner of what may be one of many universes. So we aren't really that significant. The more science has described, the smaller that gap for God to squeeze into has become.
Okay.
And I think it's the same, it's gonna be the same with free will, you're saying that that free will is a measure of unpredictability, and science at the moment can't predict what I'm going to do, therefore I have free will. All that is saying is that science is currently limited in its spectrum of observation and calculation. It's not, that doesn't prove that you have free will, it just says that science hasn't come up with the tools to predict you adequately enough. Science, and if we look at science, its trajectory, social sciences, economics, psychology, they have advanced significantly over the past, I think it's exponential curve, but let's say the past 100 years, of how they can predict human behavior. Game theory, all these things, these are all models that people pump millions and billions of dollars into advertising to influence the consumer or take over their free will. So I think it's a measure of, or it's a matter of knowing all the variables. We don't know if you. I'm arguing that if we know all the variables of you, we know your genome, we know your environment, then we can predict how your genome and its expressed phenotype will interact with an environment. Just because we can't currently practically measure all the aspects of the environment and can't decipher all the elements of your genetic code, doesn't mean that all those variables exist and that all those variables are measurable, and when we are able to measure them, we will be able to predict the outcome with 100%. So that's the one part of the argument, is that you've essentially given the God of the gaps argument, and that gap is going to become smaller and smaller as science progresses. Okay. So that's point one, and then point two is to define choice through unpredictability. Again, something being unpredictable, or like you said, random, doesn't make it sentient. You know, in our last conversation, I took it right down to the sort of quantum level and said, you know, that the behavior of that subatomic particle is random, and with our current models, unpredictable. That doesn't make it sentient. That doesn't imply that it's making actual choices. So those are my rebuttals to those two aspects of your of your argument.
All right, let's go for number one, and I'll just like a comment about that. You said, like, you know, sociologists in these psychological studies have been improving exponentially. That's aside, but I think that's a tough thing to say. Otherwise, probably they would have said, yeah, we should all get out of America because Trump's going to get elected, but they couldn't predict that. So I don't know if the prediction ability based on sociological senses
predicted. I think the Simpsons predicted it. I think there were lots of times.
That's true. The Simpsons is a bigger think tank than CNN, MSNBC, all of these together. Hell yeah, and Harvard.
There is truth in fiction. That's all.
Hell yes. Yeah. All right, that's good. So, and then the first one, the God of the gaps, and this is a very semantic point, which the rebuttal to that is why free will is not a God of the gaps placeholder, because I think that's a good way to define that. You're saying that free will is a placeholder for lack of knowledge.
Correct.
Right. And the reason why the analogy, the God analogy, does not work is, again, based on definitions. The definition of God we know is impossible. So hence, the definition of God, and if again, everyone has kind of their own, but if you ask Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, the contradiction lies in the definition. A God is all-knowing, all-powerful, out of time, and omniscient, ever, right? So, but then I say, okay, cool. Can he make a rock that he can't lift? Yes. If you answer yes or you answer no, he loses. Then your definition goes away. Can he change his mind because he's out of time, omniscient, and he knows everything? That can't happen. So hence, in 30 seconds, you can prove to someone just by the definitions of God that God doesn't exist, and you obviously throw them down a rabbit hole where it generally ends in you being stabbed with some kind of dagger or something, or blown up. I guess same thing. So yeah, we're not gonna have a big Muslim crowd. So yeah, so in that sense, that doesn't equate, because the definition of God is in itself the contradiction, wherein the definition of free will, in a sense, allows for that lack of knowledge. Because in the definition, I do not imply, or I do not say that that lack of knowledge will, like, even if we get more knowledge over time, that will not change the spectrum or actually take the spectrum away. It just says that that's why it rests upon unpredictability. I'm not saying I'm sentient. I'm not saying I have a consciousness. I'm only saying you can't predict me, which is true. And then you say, but I can't predict my dog 100%, because sometimes it bites a white person. Like I don't know. We're thinking our crowd, right? And
yes, that's wrong podcast.
That's true. He does not know what he's saying. Hashtag Steve Hoffman, right? So in a sense, yes, a dog, I can say, has free will according to my definition.
So are you saying that dogs do have free will?
Yeah, you can't predict a dog 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, so the dog does have a consciousness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does a chicken have free will?
Fuck yeah. Yeah.
A mouse?
Yeah, because you can't predict a mouse 100%. Yeah.
Plant?
That's a good question. Some plants do.
A bacteria?
So, no.
Okay, so a bacteria doesn't have free will.
No, but wait for it.
A plant has a free will.
Certain scientific studies have predicted what bacteria does 100%. So then that means that bacteria does not have free will.
Okay.
And again, so I understand that in a sort of layman way, we don't think chickens have free will, and that's why we're trying to figure out which definition works the best. And yes, I agree, it does sound stupid saying a mouse has free will. But again, for me, I cannot say I have a brain, I have neurons making connections. A mouse is the same. Yes, mouse are unpredictables, as the one in my roof who only chooses Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I have not found a pattern to the times when he wakes me up. Is their free will limited than mine? Yes, it is, because it's more limited. But it doesn't mean that he does not have a choice. So if you take some very invertebrates who have literally 2 neurons, I don't know. Does an ant have 1 neuron? I don't know. I can't remember. But they do they make choices? And that's a good question. If I can predict 100% what this ant does, then it doesn't. And again, this is more, that's why the definition is a function based on predictability. If there's a better definition, and people have lots of big definitions, it is this, it's this emergent thing that comes from 4D interconnections of space, travel, and time within, fuck knows what that means. No one knows what that means.
Okay, so
you're
yes, saying that there's a spectrum.
So when
of free will.
I was answering. So we covered the first one, the second one. What was your second point?
That unpredictability implies free will.
Yeah. So and that's where I think I don't have a great rebuttal in that, meaning that if you take that down to the bacterial level, yes, it does. Then how do I extend that theory or definition just to include humans? That's tricky. Some people use the definition that because you are able to forego pleasure in the moment, that means you have a higher consciousness, and hence that's why you and I save. That's why we're doing something now for the future. Delaying of gratification, and hence is the second definition as a layer to unpredictability, which some animals have. Some animals have shown that in testing, and then you could say, is that test true or not? That monkey, is it learned behavior, or is it
instinct?
Is it instinct, or is it free will? In other words, that they are actually making a choice to do that. The question always remains for me is the definition has to lie within a realm where we can test it.
Okay.
And that's why if you challenge the definition, you either have to come up with a better one, but it still has to be testable.
Okay. So you've described a spectrum of free will, saying that bacteria do not have free will because we have built models that can predict their behavior with 100%. And then you've said that plants we can't predict with 100%, but they are more predictable than mice, and mice are more predictable than chickens, and chickens are more predictable than them, and we are at the top of this.
And women are more unpredictable than humans.
so they are the pinnacle of
hot women are more
evolution.
Unpredictable.
Exactly, agreed.
And the tax service is the most unpredictable thing. I have no idea why I owe what I owe. No problem. Anyway.
So, there was a time where we could not predict the behavior of bacteria. Under your definition, they would then have free will. But now we can predict their behavior, so now they don't have free will. I'm gonna make an educated guess here and say that with a reasonable amount of time, we'll be able to predict the behavior of plants with 100%. Do you think that's likely?
Sure, I agree with that. The other thing with me, I think where...
No.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I agree, yeah.
And then do you think there's going to be a time where we can predict the behavior of mice with 100%?
Yeah.
And chickens?
Probably, yes.
Monkeys?
No. Again, it sounds ridiculous. Yes, and you go to humans, and then my answer is
So where do you draw that line, and what are you drawing that line with? Because it sounds like a very, in your words, ethereal, metaphysical line. You're basically saying, what you're describing as free will is almost a description of a soul. This sort of sentient inner workings of something that is unpredictable and has its own choice, a kind of being John Malkovich situation.
But I'm
where
not describing it. And again, it comes back to you are taking on my argument in a way of saying your argument doesn't hold because maybe the future.
No. I'm saying
If.
No.
You said if.
So, not maybe the future. Look, if we take Moore's law of computers, right?
Which does not apply to biology.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Okay, so let's. It doesn't have to be exponential. Okay. Any growth of knowledge over an infinite period of time is gonna end up high. Okay, so right, we are gonna continue learning.
I don't know. How do you define that? Again, then knowledge is, you're saying as time goes on, our knowledge gets greater.
Correct.
If we're not hit by a meteorite, destroyed, and civilization starts over, which again we don't know.
Yeah.
So you can't bring an argument in saying in the future maybe.
Okay. So
you can't.
You
have to deal with what is now.
All our current models of prediction, right, are derived from measuring past events. Would you agree with that?
What are models of prediction as past events? Well, in a sense, yes, because we live in the past, in a sense that, the photon hits, it actually just tells me it's 0.8 second. So in that sense, everything is in the past. So of course, 100%.
Exactly.
Sure.
So if you look at what at our progress that we have made in our ability to make predictions, is it a reasonable assumption that our ability to make predictions is going to continue to increase?
The assumption is correct, but we're not talking about assumptions, because in a sense, my definition is also based on the fact...
Are we becoming better at predicting?
I don't know. No, I'm serious. I don't know.
Okay.
No, wait.
Have we been becoming better at predicting?
That is such a big, large question. I don't know.
It's a simple question. Looking retrospectively at our at scientific literature and philosophy and everything, okay, have we become better at making predictions?
Yeah, you would have to say as a whole, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's reasonable to infer that we are going to continue becoming better at making predictions.
It's reasonable, but not testable. And within my definition lies the fact that you can test it now. I can test the predictability now.
You're making a theological argument.
No.
You're not making a scientific one.
How is that non-scientific? So the fact that I say something is testable now, like the definition within which I say my free will is predicated on your ability to predict my behavior, means we can test that right now. You and I cannot base a theory on the fact that I'm saying you're not going to be able to test me that well in the future, because we can't test that. So that's what I'm trying to keep it simple, so that yes, if you want to change that definition, then we have to bring in that into the definition to say,
if you're limiting everything to now,
free will is what does not exist in the future. Well, then if that's the definition, then that's...
If you're limiting everything to what we are currently able to do,
because that is proof. Proof is based, and that's where we say where I know something, meaning it is provable, testable now, because that's what science is. It is what is now.
Okay, so by your definition then, in the year 500 AD, God did exist.
My prediction. It's not a prediction because it's in the past. What do you mean?
No.
Predictions are.
You're saying then, at that time, they didn't have the measurements to disprove God. Therefore, at that time, he didn't exist.
No, but
he did exist. Because you're saying now...
No, but they did have the measurements to prove whether God exists. They did. They did.
Okay, let's say 2000 BC then, whenever, okay?
They still had the stuff because the proof to prove if God exists or not is within the properties, the definition of God itself. Because it is
this omnipotent thing, whatever.
Yeah, it's okay because...
But that's one definition of God. That's not everyone's definition of God.
Yeah, but if we all have different definitions of it, then don't know what we're arguing, then you can't use that argument. Right? Because we have to use something where everyone has like the same definition. And now take the Muslims' definition of God. It's just a little bit different, but the same crazy. It's like a dude came, he killed some people, made some war, had some wives. He's all knowing, everything he says is right, although he couldn't write. And now he's somewhere else, like getting a virgin's ready. I don't know what he's doing. Not drawing of himself. And I can prove you can't do that and that at the same time. It's still the same concept. So the proof and disproof of God is a bad analogy because the contradiction lies in the definition, where so far there is no contradiction within my definition of free will. Hence it's a bad...
Okay.
Yeah. So you can't use that analogy.
You like biology. Let's use a biological example.
Go.
Okay. Before Semmelweis, okay, when, aka before germ theory,
okay,
we didn't have the tools to measure the bacteria being the source of puerperal sepsis, okay. So
why do we have to bring the bacterium into it?
Because that's where the story originated. Okay, so we were just doing PVs between patients and no gloves, no hand washing, no problem. People were dying left, right and center. Okay, so people were dying. Okay, that was the reality.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a measurement or description. We weren't able to predict it yet. So you're saying that germs didn't exist because we couldn't measure them at that time?
No, I'm not saying they didn't exist because you couldn't measure at the time. You could measure them, but there was a lack of knowledge.
Okay, but what I'm saying is now we can measure everything of you and everything of the environment and therefore make a perfect prediction of our abilities, but we don't have all the knowledge. So how is that different?
Yeah, so one, you don't have all the knowledge of me now. You don't know if you're going to have it in the future. You don't know. You have to agree with that simple point that you don't know. Let's go back to germ theory. Yes, they didn't know, didn't mean they didn't have free will to choose not to do that. I don't understand how this has an effect on the free will argument. Because again, so their choices, yes. Did their free will increase from there to today? If they were still alive? Yes. Why? Because knowledge increases. Does that mean, do we know that knowledge will indefinitely, because then you kind of say indefinite. So let's just use the word indefinite to say a massive increase. We don't know. Because how do I prove that knowledge will increase indefinitely? You can't prove that you can't prove something because to prove it, we have to repeat it now and then test it. You can't. Yes, you can make a prediction, but my definition's got nothing to do with prediction.
But you said at the beginning, you defined reality by our ability to make predictions. And now you're saying that your definition of free will has nothing to do with predictions.
No, predicting.
You're predicting yourself.
No. Predicting into the future. What we will know later.
What other kind of predictions are there? Predictions about the past?
No, there's predictions of, sure, I predict this will fall now.
Okay.
So is that the future?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I agree that's the future.
Good.
But it is within the realms of I can test this. Saying that once we have unlimited or all knowledge, then free will wouldn't exist. The fact that when we have that, because we don't have that yet, we can't test that. And hence, that argument goes away.
I still don't see how you can differentiate your argument from the God of the Gaps argument. Step out of time for a second.
Which we can't.
And just observe your arguments. Just try and think of yourself in the future, looking back at this discussion, and think of where technology will be and our measurements and.
No, I see that from a big point of view, that yes, in 50 years, if they know everything about me and Siri on my phone has like an app where it shows how it predicts everything I do, and that is the proof that I don't exist. Yes, if that happens, if you can show me that's happening, I will say yes, because now free will doesn't exist.
Okay, so only one is demonstrated, but now.
But remember, I think what's going amiss here is the fact that you're trying to take my argument out of a definition of free will in your own head, not within the realms of the definition I've given.
Which is what?
Which is that you are able to predict my behavior 100%.
Okay.
And test that. Repeating it with sense data from more than one person.
So, I mean...
Which you can only do in real time.
I mean, this is what...
So either my definition is wrong and we should change the definition, or I'm right to me a free will. Does that mean that the definition encompasses all the complexities of how free will comes into existence, if it exists? No, it doesn't even, that's what we can go into. But it doesn't even take that into account. It just gives a broad framework of saying, to say I have choice, we have to be able to test, do I have choice or not? And this is my way of testing. I don't know. I can't think of another way. How do we test if I have choice or not? Whether you can map out how my brain chooses, does that matter? That's another question, which is an interesting question. If you see how I make choice in real time, do I have control of my brain? Does it matter? You can still not predict me. If the fact that I use prediction of what's testable now as a proof of free will, either that's wrong or right, or there's a better or worse way.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
how give me a different way.
Do you think people can be influenced?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Do you agree that there's a spectrum of influence?
Yes.
Do you agree that the end point of, the one extreme of influence would be complete control?
Yes.
Do you agree that if you have complete control over something, then that thing is 100% predictable?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So we have been able to influence people more and more. This is what advertising is. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? We have found out how to influence people, how to change their behavior, aka make them more predictable, and influence their behavior in a way that we can predict that they will buy our product. That's been a trend. And that trend is going to probably continue. And we're going to become more and more predictable until we're controlled.
But that, yeah, sure, I get, but
so that,
but that's not an argument.
And at that point, there might be free will.
Yeah, but that is a good argument to say free will is decreasing, which I don't disagree with. But it does not mean free will doesn't exist now in time.
It means that
Because you could say both. The only way you could say that is, but you could say the opposite as well. If companies are so good at predicting people's behavior, why does 99% of companies fall away? Why, if you look at the biggest companies in the Forbes 500, is there only 3 left in the last 50 years? It means companies are not getting it right because there's always new ones. Why is there so many divorces? People can't even predict who they would like in 50 years. So there's so many other markets I could use.
People can't predict themselves.
Yes.
Okay. So let's touch on that point. Okay.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Have you made the decisions that you regret?
Yes.
Why would you do that if you
this chocolate eclair is a bad decision. Asking you to get snacks is a terrible decision.
So why would you make decisions that you regret if you have free will?
So it kind of plays, I don't know if that actually plays into my argument. Because just the fact that I made a decision that I can later change my decision about, meaning I am unpredictable to myself, which makes me more unpredictable, which gives me more free will in the moment.
If you can't predict yourself, then are you the one making the choice?
That's a good argument. That's a good argument.
So just because you are unpredictable, and it brings me back to my first part of the argument, that just because you are unpredictable doesn't mean you have free choice.
So
because you're unpredictable to yourself.
Yeah.
I can look back at myself and say, what on earth was I thinking? Well, maybe I wasn't thinking.
Sure.
Because I don't have free will. Because I'm just a robot.
No, and that's a good argument. This is how I would go about this argument. Therein lies where the definition is based upon the current time. So for me, the only question is, do I have a choice right now what to do? Whether I change my mind later or I say I did something wrong based upon my lack of knowledge, or the lack of knowledge of your ability to choose worthy snacks, which the only way I gain that knowledge is by asking you to do something. So hence, with the enhancement of knowledge, my free will has now changed. Wherein now, not changed, it has shifted. I now have one less choice in my life, and that choice is asking you to get the snacks. Now,
what's wrong with the snacks?
I'm just saying.
Sexual innuendo aside, delicious, right? Is it a calorie issue, or is it?
It is a glycation life changing. No, there's no innuendo unless you start eating in an incredibly sexy way. I wish I would have to close down the show. So now, all that this does is it changes the scope of my choices now. It does not mean at this moment or that moment I did not have free choice. So the question, I get that. So now you're saying what I never said within the definition is that the seat of control is me. I didn't say that. It does not. Am I in control, or is my brain in control, or is a soul in control? Is the universe in control? Is the NSA in control? It doesn't matter, because and again, that comes with a later decision to like.
Okay, but then I think we need to redefine what free will is.
No, but sure. This is why all I've been doing so far is fighting back for my definition, which I'm still waiting for your definition. So, just because the fact that I can change my mind maybe gives me more control. So you're saying now I don't have control because I made the wrong decision, but I still made a decision and then I changed the decision, which is also random because I chose you to get that. Could you predict that I would later regret my choice? And we can then make a study. How many of Johan's choices will I be able to predict that it's wrong? And that's where the divorce thing comes in. Am I able to predict how many people would divorce next year? No, which means I can't predict even people changing their own decisions. Hence, it's another layer of proof that people are predictable to themselves and to me. If you know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean.
You don't know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? So the thing is, because no, but let's make it easy. Changing my mind, does that forfeit control over my own mind? Does that mean I don't have control over my own mind?
I think to a degree, yes. Because your intellect, let's say that your intellect remains constant, okay? The only additional information that you have received following your decision is the effect of the decision.
Correct.
Okay? And that says, okay, it was a poor decision. So then you can... I don't think that... How do I word this correctly?
Why changing my mind makes me lose agency? I don't
Okay.
see that, because okay, let me define it as this. Agency is that, let's say, I provide the element, I contain the element of unpredictability. Does that also mean that I have unpredictability towards myself? That's the question. Because I'm unpredictable to myself, which I agree to a certain aspect. Again, this comes tricky to define. I know exactly what I'm going to do today, every hour of the day. I've planned it out. I know everything's booked. Sure, I don't know what I'm going to say next, 100%, but there is an element of that my life is planned, like
Okay.
for the next year.
So you don't know what you're going to say next, okay? So where are those ideas coming from?
They are now formulating in my brain as I choose to say this. It does not take away from because a moment we need to get back. It does not take away that you still couldn't predict it. So the definition still rings correctly.
But if both of us can't predict it, so if you can't predict yourself either, then for me that's contradicting free will.
Sure. No, I hear that. So then the question is, it doesn't contradict it, because I still have choice in what I say. So that's the question. Just because if I can say I know what I'm going to say, because I can say that, okay, I know what I'm going to say next. So does that contradict what I just said before? Because it's an element of how far ahead do I know? I know what I'm going to say next.
Okay.
So I mean,
Okay.
does that take it away?
Okay.
Because it was 2 seconds into the future.
Okay. I know what you're going to say next, and I don't think you do.
Prove it.
What's your name?
Jackson? You didn't think I was going to say that? All right. So, and again, so that's a good question. I think let's explore that.
So what you're going to say is influenced by what I'm going to say, right? It's what you're going to say is a product of your personality and my personality interacting. Is that reasonable?
Sure.
Okay, so our choices or our free will is a product of the interaction of us, this biological organism, with our environment. So if you change the environment, you're going to change the choice.
In a way, so this is what I'm thinking. Sorry, I agreed with what you're saying, but I wasn't focusing.
What are you thinking about? It must be fascinating.
No, this is what I'm trying to think about. So then it comes down to does the definition of free will include a point of view? So in a sense that's a good point. If I'm unpredictable to myself, can I assign free will then to myself? or then that's why do I assign free will to my brain and not to myself? Then the question is, what is myself?
Yeah.
So far in my definition, it includes, I appear to have free will to you according to the definition. Does that mean I have free will according to myself? And I don't know. Then you might have to add something like that into the definition.
Yeah, so point of view, perspective.
Point of
This
view.
is the whole point. So like,
So
someone like Sam Harris that says that free will is an illusion. I agree that things can appear as if we have free will. That's indisputable. But that doesn't mean that we do have free will. A perspective of free will doesn't imply actual agency, and that's what I'm arguing, is that if we have full knowledge of the organism and full knowledge of the environment, we will be able to predict its behavior, and by it I mean us.
Yeah. So
it just lays of complexity. If you must explain to me why, if we can predict the actions of a bacteria with more information, why can we not predict the behavior of a human? What is it that makes it unlikely?
Sure, but the question is not that it's unlikely. The question is just whether it's now possible, and we know it's not. So I'm not saying that if one day we do, then they have no free will. The thing that I'm trying to figure out is, so does
you're just because this is the point that we're getting stuck on here now. Okay, you're saying.
No, but we've moved on to the next point whereby okay.
You're saying that if we can't predict me right now, it means that I have free will. I don't agree with that.
Okay, why not? But then you have
because we're saying because we're limiting to ourselves about what we can test now, and so right now we can't get to Mars, or we can't
fly at speed of light.
Okay, but I mean that's unlikely to change. Right now, we can't populate Mars.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very, very likely that we will populate Mars.
We have a space force. They.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think we need to allow ourselves to make reasonable predictions about what our abilities are going to progress to.
Yeah, but for me,
if you are going to contain yourself by saying that you can't predict me now, therefore I have free will.
Okay, but let's make it easier.
Let's back to the God of the Gaps.
Let's make it easier. So the question now is, can humans live on Mars now?
If we were there.
No. Yes or no?
Can they live on Mars now?
No.
As if they were dropped there now, would they survive?
Yeah. Can we make humans live on Mars now?
Can we make humans live on Mars now? Yes.
Okay, prove it. And then it falls apart. So the thing is, why I say now, and wait for it.
Pathetic argument.
No, because this we can't slander. People don't want to see people slandering each other. So again, this is a semantic argument that's important. Because
we are going to prove it. So then you're going to say, but when they land on Mars, then you're going to say, okay, Peter, you were right.
Yes.
But I'm going to...
Yes, then I will. But it's the fact is that...
So now I'm wrong, but then I'll be right.
Yes.
That's not an intellectual argument that you're giving.
Why not?
You're saying, okay, prove it. So I can't prove it right now because it takes us 4 years to get there. So
no.
Now I'm going to be wrong for 4 years, but in 4 years' time, I'll be right.
So take something
that's
like...
ridiculous.
So take the Higgs
boson. You understand that's ridiculous. You agree that's ridiculous.
No, I don't think it's ridiculous. Why? Because we have not proven that the technology exists to yet form a colony on Mars. We have lots of parts of technology. We have shown some things. But has a human gone that far in a spacecraft and not died? No. So in essence, it's like any science. You have to prove every step of the way, and then you have to have a colony that stays there before you can say, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's completely unlikely.
Okay.
I'm just saying...
You're a gambler. Would you bet money that we are going to colonize Mars, yes or no?
Yes, but this is not a gambling show. No.
Science is about probability. And where are you going to put...
No, science is about proof. Science is about testable theories that you can prove with hypotheses and null hypotheses.
With reasonable certainty. There's always going to be a measure of doubt because we are making measurements with imperfect instruments.
Sure, I get that. But then there's different levels to that, and you can say there's some things we can predict 100%. Now that we know is science. There's constants, which has not been disproven, which is proved every time someone attempts a proof.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all say, yes. When it comes to biology, which is what we're used to, and we say, cool, 98% of this population will react to that. Cool, are you predicting that? Yeah, okay, prove it. Then you can actually do a study for me right here and do it against, okay, 89% within this reference range, where you cannot run a test now to say, here's Mars, here's humans, in a sense, because that is science. You have to recreate.
We could create
you have
a
to.
computer. We
Computer models aren't accurate. No, seriously. So computer models.
India went to space, and they nailed it first time, under budget, because they built brilliant computer models.
Sure, but the computer model is not proof in itself. It's not. The proof lies in the moment they went out and the guy waved and said no, no. That is the moment that proof happens. So the question is really, when do you know? Know is when does proof happen? It happens when it's testable.
Okay, so I mean,
again, that is the generalized definition. If I'm wrong, then we have to change the parameters here.
So when did the proof happen? When Einstein wrote E equals mc squared, or when the Hiroshima bomb went off?
The proof, no. If like he predicted a lot of things 70 years ago, 80 years ago. The proof happened when they saw the star bend and they could say, okay, the star bend this way and this is how it, or when the bomb went off, or when they did it in the lab first, because that is how science proves things, is by experiments. If you can't do an experiment, you're conjecturing. Yes, you can be predicting 100% correct. But that's why, if you can't prove it, that's why I say it's back to sense data, it's back to experiments. And if we just predict free will, we're not being able to test anything. Because I want to...
You're the one that's predicting free will.
No, I'm using the scientific...
You're predicting that in the future, we are not going to have the tools to predict 100%. And I'm saying that we are going to.
No, I never said I never said that. No, I'm not saying we're not going to be able to. I'm saying I don't know, which is different.
Okay, so
which I don't know.
So that makes us both scientists.
Sure. So at the moment, free will exists according to the definition. Will it exist tomorrow? I don't know. But it exists now, and there's no proof for me to say it doesn't exist now according to the definition I gave. Unless my definition is wrong. But you've so far accepted the definition.
I haven't.
Okay, then provide yours.
So the one definition I still think is like an esoteric God of the gaps definition. And the other definition I think we can explore further, the one that says, because I'm unpredictable, that gives me free will. I don't accept.
Okay, then let's focus on that one.
So let's focus on that one. So I think that most people, when you speak about free will attribute a sense of agency, of being self-aware, of...
She's talking.
She's talking to me now. Does she have free will? Did she do that? Is she conscious?
We have to go climb.
Is it climb time?
No, it's like 4:15, so yeah, 15 minutes.
How long have we been talking for?
Hour and 15 minutes.
Great chat.
Great. 15 more minutes, then we could go.
Okay, closing arguments.
We're not even at fucking definitions. This is ridiculous. Okay, shut up. Give me your definition.
My definition of
Yes.
free will.
I've been asking it the whole time.
My definition of free will is the ability to make conscious choices. By conscious, I mean we are aware of all the variables that are influencing our decision, and we alone are making that decision. I don't think that exists because there are so many variables influencing us that we are not aware of.
But you understand how weird it sounds when you say, I'm giving you a definition of something that doesn't exist, which is exactly what I think God is. So that's just what you said. That's weird. You get that, right? You just did that.
You asked me to define it.
Yes, I did. It's very strange that your definition is something that doesn't exist. Which is,
Absolutely.
I could have asked you, what is a My Little Pony?
Exactly. I totally agree with you.
So then why are we talking about something that doesn't exist?
So we agree that free will doesn't exist.
No, your definition. Your definition.
Finally! Okay, can we finish this now?
No. That's so funny. Okay. So it is your ability to consciously make a decision.
Yes.
Okay.
There has to be sentience in the unpredictability.
Yeah.
I accept the thing of unpredictability. I think that we need to add a measure of sentience there.
Okay. How? How do you measure sentience? That's the question, because I mean, your definition, we agree that we have to give definitions that are scientifically testable. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how would I prove or disprove your theory opposite or not opposite or adding or different from how you would prove mine? Because I've given you what my definition, how we prove or disprove it. And
I think it's a shit definition. I think it's a...
Sure, but this is why I'm asking yours, so that either... Yeah, but this is why I'm asking yours. It might be shit. I might be. It's not a nice way to just like swear at someone's arguments and stuff. Children, don't do this. When your mom says, I really think you should go to bed because it's good for you because it's 3 o'clock and you're writing a test, like, that's a shit argument! It's a shit thing to say! This is not, it's for you who don't have...
Got me worked up, okay? Okay, so...
Saying it's a shit argument is not an
argument.
That's
I
not an
agree.
argument.
That was just uncalled for. You know I love you. We should hug immediately after this podcast.
Not as in a clear in my mouth. Okay.
Okay. No, but seriously. So I think this is why we went into the thing of AI last time, is you're saying that AI will always be predictable.
Let me put this analogy out in a way to describe when we think arguments are stupid or non-stupid. When you can call seriously, you can call my argument shit. And this is how. So, if we are fighting about arguments, right, or definitions, and we have a moral, we like, okay, what is morals? Give me your definition. And then by your definition, I can show that stealing and non-stealing is both true according to your definition.
Yeah.
Hence, then it's a stupid definition.
Yeah.
Correct. Right.
Correct.
Same if you're like, oh, by your definition of morality, you can both rape and not rape at the same time, and it's good.
Okay.
And if you can say yes, you see that, then it's a shit definition.
Right.
Then we need to throw it away. So if you can show to me that with my definition, we can both at the same time prove that humans can make choice and not make choice, or that's why I say the argument of saying a bacteria has free will, it sounds pathetic, but it's not still not contradictory. And even though, yes, I say, like, if I have a moral code that says rape is good, then you'll say like, well, okay, cool, you gotta find something else, because that just sounds terrible, and we all have intuitive feel that is terrible. Because if I say yes, a rock has free will, now everyone's like, no one's going to listen to this argument anymore. Again, we haven't proved that my definition says a rock has free will, so we're still okay. I'm not saying it's a great definition, because we kind of want to get it to a testable place, and a place where there's no contradictions. And you still have not shown me a contradiction in that. I might agree that it sounds a little bit stupid when I say a very weird form of virus is also sentient, is also in a sense has got free will, because it sounds stupid. So maybe we should add on something. Agreed. So maybe saying that I'm both, this sentient being is both unpredictable to people outside and to himself, maybe is a better definition. But again, I can't prove that to a virus, because a virus can't fill in a questionnaire. So this is how you prove my definition sucks, and you still haven't done that, so you suck.
I'm getting ad hominem arguments are flying here now. Okay.
Okay, you've got 10 minutes to provide me a good 9 minutes to provide me your definition or prove my definition sucks ass. So go. Or provide yours, which again I cannot contradict.
Yeah.
Because we have to use our first postcards to just get through definition, so we can actually argue about it next time.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Okay.
So, we should script this before.
We should script this before.
Okay, go.
Okay. So. Yeah, I think saying something is making choices because it's unpredictable, I think is silly.
Okay, why?
Because the weather is unpredictable, but would you say that the weather has free will?
I would not say the weather has free will.
Good.
The weather is very predictable.
But not 100%.
I can predict it's not going to rain. This is the question.
Not 100%.
No, not
We've got
100%.
very good computer models, great computer models, cool apps, but like still, as I get on my Vespa, because my phone has told me it's sunny, the drops come down and my life sucks.
Yeah, and then that arises with the question of 100% or not 100%.
Yeah.
The weather is very predictable. I can predict it in the next 5 minutes. I can say it's not going to rain in the next 5 minutes, and I'll be right if I see the sun is out. Hence, and again, weather is a big term. It's like, will the forest sprout nicely next summer? Fuck knows. Because you're using, that's my question when it comes down to definitions. Can you go touch the weather for me? No. Because it's go touch the weather. How the fuck are you going to touch the weather? Where do you touch the weather? Yeah, I'm coming back to that thing of weather is an all-encompassing abstract concept, which again is not a great thing.
Okay.
If you see the sun,
can you predict rain?
Yes, we can. We predict it pretty well.
But not 100%.
Yeah, I agree. We can't predict it 100%.
Okay, so we can only predict. So we can only predict rain 90%. We can only predict humans 60%. So you're saying humans have 40% free will, and you're saying that rain has 10% free will.
That's a good argument. I don't say that. So then there's a gap in the definition.
There's a big gap.
No, there is a big gap.
Exactly similar to the God of the Gaps argument, which is what I've been saying from the beginning.
No, I don't think. Like I said, I've said why I think it's not the God of the Gaps, because the God of the Gaps is wrong at its definition, which you have agreed with.
Yeah.
So that's why that falls out. I would say whether it's going to rain is 100% predictable if I have enough variables, which does exist today. Meaning, if I shoot up an air balloon right now and it goes and waits there at a specific place with a specific humidity and we take that measurements, I can say, and the question is not always whether it's gonna rain or not. Again, now you can say, no, you could say, remember, take this argument, it also includes the span of time. So if I put a rock here and I say, oh, you can predict that rock's still gonna be in 2,000 years, I'm like, well, come on, like now saying 2,000 years, we might be hit by a meteorite, there'll be all these other things. And that's probably where you got to find, where's that constraints of saying, if I shoot up a thing and I can't tell you whether it's raining or not with my sense data at this moment. So I can say what is happening right now. And I can shoot that thing up and I can say it's going to rain in 5 minutes. I can predict very good what's going to happen in this area in the next 15, 16 minutes. So for me, it's that weather argument again. You have to probably put something in. You have to put a time lapse in. You have to put in how many variables you know. I don't know. Like, do I have to say with 99% of variables, we still can't predict a human's behavior within a 5-minute time span, compared to where we have 100% of all the variables in weather. And we can predict it 100% within the next 15 minutes.
So I think
you get that, but you get where I'm going to. Like,
yeah,
if you extend time as far as you do, you can't predict anything. Will gravity still work? In 5 billion years, will gravity still be the same? Well, when the sun implodes and there's like when we are the event horizon of a black hole, maybe not. Does that mean we don't have free will now? It's an absurdity in a way, right?
Mm.
So again, and I can't articulate well why the weather thing is wrong, because that contradiction stands. Hence, I've got to change that definition a little bit to include certain periods of time or your sense of variables. Maybe work on that. Tune in next time. All right, you've got 5 minutes for your fucking definition. Jesus.
For my definition of free will.
Yes, because you gave this thing about conscious, and then I was like, okay, but then how, other than using predictability, how would you test it? So just tell me, how would you test it? Because you haven't told me how you would test it. Because if you can't test it, then...
So I'm saying that
even if you say it doesn't exist, you still have to say, how do you test that it doesn't exist? Because you have to prove that it doesn't exist. You still have to do that. If I say, I will beat The Rock in arm wrestling, I still have to go set up the experiment and I have to ask him to sit across me. Still got to take out some guns.
Okay, so I mean, there's been numerous experiments that show that the more data you have of the environment in which a human is placed, the more predictable the behavior becomes.
Okay.
And I think that you can infer from that if you gain all the data of the environment, then you will be able to make foolhardy predictions about their behavior.
Okay, I see that. So let's put that in, I like that. Let's put that in words and say, like, your definition is that the decrease of choice correlates perfectly with the increase in knowledge of variables, which, if you push that forward, it goes to the point that I know 100% of the variables. Again, this becomes tricky now because you have to define what is 100% variables, and that yes, you can test that thing. So you could say, okay, this environment, I put a human in here, I know this much more, let's see what he does. Again, but does that go to 100% predictability or 0% or like 92%? Again, you have to define those parameters. Where if you test it, even if you know more, you're going to have that one where like, okay, I don't know who's going to do that. I don't know who's going to do a somersault when a car came. Like, I don't know. But then that does that violate, because otherwise then we're just talking about a trend where free will is generally something we talk about as either it's like pregnant or non-pregnant. You either have or you don't. And again,
You're the one that created a spectrum
Sure.
of free will, not
no,
me.
I agree.
Yeah.
So then the question comes, but there is that definitional difference in that I say a rock has 0. So you can also say there exists free will, because it's the same with pregnancy. You're either not pregnant or you can be 1 month to 9 months pregnant, which is a spectrum. So it's kind of the same thing. But for me, I want to know where that differentiates from 0, no free will, to free will. All right, so we're signing off. What we're going to do next time is you're going to fucking prepare something, okay? We're going to read all the guys who've done this, and we're going to read their definitions, right? And we're going to go through their definitions. We're going to pick it apart, take what we do, take what we like.
Okay, so here's a homework thought experiment.
Jesus.
Okay, that humans are you said earlier that humans are the most resourceful organisms around, right?
Yeah.
Just quickly define that again.
Yeah, so resourceful means that you can effectively use anything, and gain the largest amount of work or increase the amount of work you can get from it. I think that's the definition of resourceful.
Okay.
So I give you a few bricks, whatever. You give him something, and he's able to make more out of it than anything else would have made out of that. It's a terrible definition. That makes no sense. I'm sure there's a better definition
So
for
we're
resourceful.
resourceful, we're efficient. What I'm saying is that if that alien civilization, an advanced alien civilization, could have built this little biological planet of ours, right, and plopped us down there and known, because they created the environment and they created the organism, and then they could predict. We're putting those things together, and when I come back in, a millennia's time, they will have provided me with the answer 42, the meaning of life,
Yeah.
and then all I've got to do is figure out what the question was.
Yeah.
So,
And then they come back in like a pyramid.
this is what you've got, idiots. So,
Thousands of people pushing a block, stone.
yeah, so I'm
Brilliant.
saying that if you zoom out and just look at what we've been doing, it doesn't look like we've been exercising free will. I think we've been making stupid decisions, self-destructive decisions. I don't know why we as a civilization would have made the choices we have made if we have free will. It just doesn't look like a civilization that's thinking for itself.
Okay, I like that. I'm gonna end up with this. Is maybe in the definition has to include something regarding the purpose of the organism, which we can determine scientifically, in a sense.
Okay.
Maybe.
We'll have to define
We'll have-
purpose as well.
Yeah,
Inside.
great. Boom. All right. So we would like to thank the 3 people who started. No one. There's one. I think there was one left watching. We don't have Bitcoin addresses and shit up yet. We will, and we will only stop once we have a donation. We will not stop. This will be broadcasted across the internet
This will
forever.
be inflicted upon you indefinitely.
So this is not reverse psychology. It's not our way of getting donations, but we promise to irritate you until the day we get a sizable donation. Did I leave that open up? Signing off. Cheers. Next time.
Psychonauts.